What's going on, Jets fans? It's your boy DT back with another joint practice recap. Day 2 of the Jets and Giants joint practicing. Today was in East Rutherford. Yesterday in Florham Park. We're doing a bit of a home and home for the Jets and Giants here during these joint practices. From all reports that I've been reading today on Twitter, it looks like the Giants won the day, unfortunately, both on offense and on defense. I have a couple injuries to note, a couple notes from offense and defense, some standouts, and then a couple quotes from AG at the end. So with that injury report, Quinnen Williams dealing with a calf. He didn't make the trip over to the Giants camp today. I believe they kept him back at Florham Park, rehabbing his calf injury, taking it very slowly. The bubble wrap approach with Quinnen Williams, and I'm okay with that. Jermaine Johnson, he was out at practice today, but in street clothes. He was just activated off the pup, and yesterday he was in some drills. So, again, they're going to slow roll this approach. He said yesterday when speaking to the media that they want to roll the Ferrari slow off the truck. So, clearly they know that they're going to, ramp him up very, very slowly in hopes that he's going to be fully ready for week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the newest injury of note, one that we should be watching very closely here, at least in my opinion, cornerback Sauce Gardner had calf soreness and did not participate. Aaron Glenn, after practice, when speaking to the media, said that he will have some tests done. I'm not quite sure the extent of the injury. Nobody really knows any details yet, but we've seen calf injuries become much worse than they needed to be. So between Quinnen and Sauce, 2 calf injuries on your 2 best defensive players, I want to just take the slow roll bubble wrap approach until week 1 with both of those players. So don't anticipate seeing Sauce Gardner anytime soon out at practice. Getting into the offense a little bit, AG said that he challenged the offense yesterday in team meetings after practice because he didn't like the way that they performed yesterday. He said they responded well today, although he thought that they could have been much better in the 2-minute drills. The Jets, they lost the 2-minute drill on offense, and we'll get into the defense, but they lost it in the 2-minute drill for their offense specifically. Pass protection, it was a bit of a struggle today. Josh Myers was in with the starting team at center, and Joe Tippmann was in with the 2s and Adrian Martinez. Not going to put too much stock into it. We've been told all summer that this is a camp battle, right? AG has come out and said Myers and Tippmann are pushing each other. It's going to be a fiery competition. The best man's going to win. Me personally, I think it's Joe Tippmann over Josh Myers. Today, we saw Myers with the 1s, Tippmann's with the 2s. I'm sure that will be a rotating thing for the rest of camp. There were multiple sacks in team period. Again, it shouldn't be a surprise because we know how formidable and just dominant the Giants' defensive line is with Burns, Thibodeau, Carter, Lawrence. They have a whole host of very good players on their defensive line. So multiple sacks in team period for the Giants' defense against the Jets' offense. Fashanu and Membu were not as good as they were yesterday. It felt like yesterday they were very solid in pass pro against these guys, but today it was a little bit leaky, right? Fashanu would win on his rep, but Membu might have lost on his rep, and then vice versa. So it just seemed like one of the 2 or both were losing for the majority of the day, although they did have their own reps in there where they got wins individually. And then another just quick note about blocking and pass pro, Jeremy Ruckert was beat very badly on a delayed blitz that comes from Nick Faria of Athlon Sports and Jets X Factor. Delayed blitz, he was beat very badly, and it's just another continuing negative streak for Jeremy Ruckert. And last week it was the 2 drops that led to interceptions. This week it's a really bad sack let up. So Jeremy Ruckert, he's got a tall hill to climb, in order to make this roster. I still think he's going to make the 53. But Jeremy Ruckert is trending in a very negative way in the last couple of weeks. The run game, however, did look solid for the Jets. Braylon Allen and Justin Fields were able to rip off really good explosive runs. It was a 30-plus yard carry for Justin Fields on a read option where he wasn't touched, and it would have been a long score. And the same thing for Braylon Allen. It was a 25-yard untouched score in team period. So the run game has looked more consistently good than the pass passing offense for the Jets. That's kind of to be expected, right? We know this team's going to be a run-heavy team. So 2 good runs from the Jets offense in team period. Defensively, again, they weren't as good as they were yesterday. It felt like it was a much closer competition in terms of who won the day between the Jets and Giants. Today, it wasn't much of a secret. It was the Giants. So defense wasn't as good as they were yesterday. Maybe Sauce Gardner not being out there helps, the Giants get an advantage on the Jets, obviously. So no Sauce, Giants offense, wins over the defense, but the Jets defense did win in a 2-minute period drill where they forced the Giants to attempt a 62-yard field goal that fell well short of the goal line. The goal posts. So the Jets did end on a high note, winning in 2-minute period. I am intrigued to see what AG says to the defense and how they respond in the next couple practices. And although the media won't be at these practices on Thursday and for the walkthrough on Friday, I do think we will get to see, at least from AG's perspective after the practice, if the defense was able to respond in the way that he liked, just like the offense responded today in the way that he liked from yesterday. And then a couple quick scuffles. Again, the Giants and Jets are, tempers are flaring a little bit here in East Rutherford. Quantez Stiggers and John Runyon, the lineman for the Giants. So you have a cornerback going up against an offensive lineman in the first scuffle. Stiggers did not back down. He held his own. They didn't fight or go to the ground or anything. It was broken up relatively quickly. But you love the fact that Stiggers is giving up probably 100+ pounds to Runyon, and he was still holding his own, getting in his grill after the play. And then AVT and Nunez Roches, the defensive lineman for the Giants, got in another quick scuffle. Again, broken up very quickly. There's actually a clip going around on social media of, I believe it's Eric Watts and Brian Daboll exchanging some words during one of the scuffles. And I just think it's so funny that, the players like to chirp at coaches during these practices too. So no real fights, nothing, no punches thrown, no aggressive things going to the ground or anything like that, but a couple scuffles because the New York teams are under the heat and they feel it. They feel the pressure, right? Special teams and kicking. Nick Folk went 6 for 6, according to all the reporters in attendance, including 2 from 50+. I believe one was a 53 and one was a 55-yard attempt. So great news coming out of Nick Folk and his prospects of being the starting kicker in week 1. I feel like that's almost assumed when he was brought in, but Mevis also goes 100%. I don't have the numbers of how many kicks it was, but he didn't miss again today. So both kickers were perfect. Perhaps, Mevis is potentially auditioning for 31 other teams in the NFL at this point. So is Mevis somebody who can continue to grow in this month of August, and then you trade him at the cut down deadline instead of trying to cut him and let somebody pick him up for free? Perhaps. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the goal or the case for Harrison Mevis, but if the Jets are able to get a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick out of a couple of these roster bubble guys who they don't see making the 53, maybe Mevis is somebody who can bring back a return. A couple quick standouts. Arian Smith, he continues to consistently improve in camp. I feel like his incremental growth is very, it's more linear than obviously those of Justin Fields or even a Braylon Allen. I feel like Arian Smith's linear progression has been showing out in camp. Really like what I see from him. He had a deep pass from Adrian Martinez where he mossed the single high safety. It was probably an ill-advised throw in a real game situation, but Arian Smith comes down with it. The knock on him was he had way too many drops in college. The drop issues seem to have disappeared for now. Brandon Smith, the other wide receiver, he got a handful of catches today, including a slant pass from Justin Fields. And I wanted to highlight Smith because if he's going to get more time with the ones due to Allen Lazard's shoulder injury, this is a guy who could make the roster just due to his size. Now, he did have a very rough run block attempt that I saw in preseason against the Packers last week. It was only one play, so I'm not going to kill him over it. But I also think if he is going to supplant Allen Lazard on this roster at the wide receiver position, he needs to be a much, much better blocker because that's Allen Lazard's calling card. So Brandon Smith had a handful of catches, and I wanted to shout him out. Cornerback Brandon Stevens once again gets praise from Aaron Glenn at the post-practice presser. it feels like 3, maybe 4 times now, AG has singled out Brandon Stevens in a positive way during this summer portion. And I'm not going to say it's because Jets fans hated the signing. Obviously, I'm sure everybody in the building is aware of our feelings of Brandon Smith, but their feelings of Brandon Stevens, excuse me, are that they can turn him around and be the press man corner that he was more in college in the earlier part of his career, and they can work on the ball skills to make him a more complete cornerback opposite of Sauce. So I like the call out of Brandon Stevens once again from AG. And then one last standout, and I can't confirm any specific details on this, but I trust the source it came from. Emery Hunt of @FootballGamePlan on Twitter. He's been a guest on the Jet Nation podcast with Glenn and I in many years in the past. He usually comes on pre-draft and post-draft on that channel, and he shouted out Malachi Moore having an excellent day. I put in a message to him asking more specifics about Malachi Moore and what he saw, but I love the fact that Malachi Moore is getting a shout out. I think he deserves more reps with the ones and Andre Cisco in the back end during this second week of the preseason against the Giants. So really excited about Malachi Moore. Glad that the oblique strain isn't holding him back, and he seems to be, progressing in his position as well. He played a lot of slot corner. I guess it's considered big nickel, right? During the preseason game against the Packers, but I love his versatility. I love his motor, his tenacity. He was ready to hold his own, trying to block shed against tight ends and offensive linemen that he's giving up 100 pounds to. So I loved what I saw from Malachi Moore in the preseason game against the Packers. Glad he got a shout out. Let's see more snaps with the ones from him. Speaking of time with the ones, AG was asked at the presser today, of course, will the starters play? And if so, how much? And the direct response from AG was, the plan is the plan. And every single beat reporter knew it is not going to be wise to follow up that question and ask again in a different way, because the answer will still be the plan is the plan. And for AG to come out and say that, I'm glad. He's not going to take any BS. If he doesn't want to answer a question, he's just not going to do it. It's not a matter of he's dancing around a question. No, he's just going to flat out tell you, this is my gig. I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And you guys will find out on Saturday just how much the starters are going to play. So I love that mentality from AG. Keep everything close to the vest. There's no need to give out any, advantageous secrets to the Giants or, anybody even in the regular season. So really impressed by AG so far. I hope that whatever meeting room talk he gives with the defense today translates into better practices for the rest of the week. I will have a new film breakdown coming out tomorrow. That'll be a live stream, probably around 7 or 7:30 p.m. Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening. And then Friday night or Saturday morning, I will put out a what to watch for, just like I did last week, go over a couple key points I want to see against the Giants, and I want to see the Jets accomplish against the Giants. So look forward to those two videos coming out on the stream. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, hit the like button. I'm DTereman. Subscribe if you're new. We just eclipsed 700 subscribers, so now we're on the road to 800, 900, and then we're on the road to 1,000. It's right there in the byline. We're going to get to 1,000 by the season opener. I have no doubt about that. You guys are the best community in the world, in sports, in any facet of social media. You guys do it, and you guys rock it. You guys are my A1 since day one. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, I'm DTereman. Subscribe if you're new. And until next time, let's go Jets.